welcome to ABP Live. I have with me today a special guest, Ambassador Kenneth I, who was America's ambassador to India during the first tenure of US President Donald Trump. And we are going to understand from him that from 2017 till 2021, in the first tenure, and when he was also the ambassador to India, how the relationship has undergone a change. What is it that we are looking ahead in the next coming 4 years? Welcome to ABP Live, Ambassador, and thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So, Ambassador, let me understand first from you. I know this is going to be a generic question, but how do you see after 7-8 years the relationship? Because under you, when you were the ambassador in India, we saw the relationship undergoing a paradigm change, and India became one of the most important strategic partners for the United States. Going forward, now that we have President Trump back in the White House, how do you see the relationship, the dynamics shaping up?
Well, I think the relationship will continue to be very strong. The U.S.-India relationship has grown in leaps and bounds over the last 25 years since the transformation that occurred during the term of President George W. Bush and Prime Minister Vajpayee. And it was very strong during the first Trump administration. The Biden administration built on that and also had an extremely strong U.S.-India relationship. And I think that will continue to grow. And if I can just give a few examples, because really what happened in Trump 1.0 is indicative of what will happen in 2.0. The Trump administration popularized the concept of the Indo-Pacific, which had first been originated by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in his speech, The Confluence of Two Seas, in 2007 in India, and then built on the fact that the rise of China was going to be a geopolitical challenge for all countries in the region. We revived the Quad during the Trump administration and elevated it to the prime ministerial level, and then the Biden administration elevated it further to the leadership level. We focused on enhancing the defense relationships, signing 3 foundational agreements and expanding our exercises. We enhanced the technology relationship, which the Biden administration built on further. We changed dramatically the energy relationship with exports of oil and gas. And I think that's going to, again, be a very critical part of the component. So across the board, it was very positive. There may well be frictions in a couple of areas, such as trade, even though trade and investment continues to grow, and potentially on issues of illegal immigrants. But these are speed bumps in a very strong relationship.
Mm-hmm. Well, you raised a very valid point, Ambassador, and that's been the larger worry and concern, that while this relationship is extremely robust when it comes to the strategic aspect, maybe under Trump 2.0, we are expecting some more push on trade. Maybe we are expecting a trade deal like last time. You're well aware, we were looking at a mini trade deal followed by a larger trade deal. And of course, this push on immigration has always worried India that maybe it'll again come back to the questions that are being raised as far as H-1B is concerned. So if you can, shed some light on that, please.
Well, as you mentioned, Nayanima, both of these issues surfaced during the first Trump administration, and we managed them even though they were points of friction. And clearly, the president-elect President Trump now has said that he will put tariffs on India. He believes in the principle of reciprocity. There's a large trade deficit that the United States has with India, and the president believes that India's tariffs are among the highest. I believe they're the highest applied tariffs among G20 countries, and he's going to want to lower that in some sectors. Last time it was medical devices, yes, dairy products, and IT. And I expect that will be raised again, and it may well be that India will respond with retaliatory tariffs. But I very much hope that's not the end of the situation, but the beginning of a broader trade dialogue in which we can work out differences. I mean, after all, the United States, as India's largest trading partner, should want to lock in the benefits of that relationship and even expand the discussion beyond purely tariffs to look at how we can work together better in services and in technology and energy, healthcare, and the like, and work mutual trade-offs that are beneficial to both countries. On immigration, there's obviously a focus and concern about illegal immigrants, and the press reports there may be several 100,000 illegal Indian immigrants in the United States, and some of those individuals will be deported, especially if they've committed crimes or other wrongdoings. At the same time, the president has reiterated the importance of the H-1B program, which has been in existence for many years. India has been the chief beneficiary, and I expect that to continue. There may be some slight adjustments on the margins so that these high jobs for highly talented individuals are also highly paid jobs, and it's clear that they're not taking away jobs from Americans. But again, those issues were part of the first Trump term. I think they'll be part of the second. And I hope that on the trade area, the two leaders, President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, can put the political will behind trying to reach an agreement that will further maximize the benefits we get from bilateral trade and also be a strategic element in responding to China's economic primacy in the Asian region.
Mm-hmm. Well, that also brings me to this question, Ambassador, whether under the second tenure of Trump administration, do you think, since we saw that how President Trump invited Chinese President Xi Jinping and there was a phone call between them, do you think the focus that we saw last time, India being this China plus one strategy, especially after COVID pandemic at that point of time, do you think American businesses especially still looking at India from that aspect?
Yes, look, both India and the United States don't want to have a conflict with China, and they want to try to resolve issues where they can. But I still think that the United States would support India as a alternative supply chain hub or a plus one supply chain hub. So that's not going to be an issue. The question is whether the government of India enacts policies in the economic arena that sufficiently attract private companies to make it a supply chain hub. Thus far, I think India has probably not received as much investment as it had hoped from companies no longer investing further in China. And some of that's going to other countries in the region, especially those in Southeast Asia. And this is a question of India's domestic economic agenda. I know that a lot of money is being spent to upgrade infrastructure, seaports, airports, railways, roads, highways. That's very important. But I still think I hear from U.S. companies about concerns relating to burdensome regulations, even though I think there's been an effort in India to simplify regulations and a certain amount of regulatory uncertainty. And then whether high tariffs actually make it more difficult for companies that want to bring parts and components in and out of India, and whether, again, lowering tariffs is something that is to India's own benefit economically, to creating itself as a supply chain hub, and to further embracing its economic relationship with the United States.
Mm-hmm. Points well taken. And Ambassador, coming back to what you talked about, Indo-Pacific and Quad. Now, under President Trump, we saw the revival of Quad, and of course that has progressed a lot. But do you think in this present tenure, we are going to, maybe America would want, United States would want India to have a more a sharper focus against China? Because Quad in India, we generally talk about the COVID framework, the cancer moonshot, but the focus that was there, the reason, the main objective behind Quad, do you think President Trump would want India to come out more openly?
Well, first of all, I think you've already seen the new administration emphasizing the importance of the Quad. On January 21st, the first diplomatic act, really, of the Trump administration was for foreign ministers from the United States, Japan, India, and Australia to meet in the Quad. And this is the year India is hosting a Quad summit meeting. So that's a great opportunity. I think there's an understanding that India is in a slightly different position geographically and historically vis-a-vis China than the United States, and it's not easy for India to be as clear in its concerns about China as for the U.S., but I think there is clarity that the rise of China is a challenge, and I think our two countries will continue to work together. on a range of issues. I think there'll be greater defense cooperation and maritime domain awareness in the Indian Ocean region. And there may be areas where we can increase our coordination on tabletop exercises and scenario planning. And I think those are really more important than whether India makes rhetorical statements that are sharper in its view of China than they have been. And I guess I would say that that's not expected given its own geographical position relative to China.
Hmm. Well, also, Ambassador, if I can ask you, since you talked about the maritime domain, do you think in Indo-Pacific, now that India is also focusing a lot on the maritime domain, we recently had three warships joining the Indian Navy's fleet. You think under the present Trump administration, the focus will be as much? And also, today we have a much more different Sri Lanka and a Bangladesh, which are also sort of players and going to be stakeholders in the Indian Ocean region. So does that change the strategic calculation, so to say?
Well, again, I think the United States is committed to an Indo-Pacific strategy, to a presence in the region, to a strong U.S.-Indian relationship, and that will go as far as the Indians let it go to a certain degree, and that should include coordinating among our navies in the Indo-Pacific waters. We do more military exercises than we've ever done, and they're becoming increasingly complex. And I think the U.S. Defense Department is prepared to push the relationship as far as the Indians will allow it to go. So I do think there will be a strong defense relationship going forward, just as there was during the first Trump administration when we signed three major foundational agreements and worked closely in this arena.
Right. And also, Ambassador, my last question to you, I know you have a very busy time ahead. Just to understand from you that, defense ties have really developed a lot in this past 7, 8 years. And we've also seen coming in of something called an ISAT, the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies, under which it was expected that probably there's going to be this transfer of technology between the two defense, the military to military relationship. And the idea is to basically wean India away from the Russian platform, so to say. But do you think ISAT will get same kind of focus? And are we also parallelly going to see, regulations like CATSA also coming up?
Well, I think that the technology element of the relationship has been critical from day one. When I was Undersecretary of Commerce in 2001, we established a high technology cooperation group that has continued. The Biden administration rebranded it as the U.S.-India Strategic Trade Dialogue, but it's been a critical element of the relationship. We had the next steps in strategic partnership. We had the civil nuclear deal. And the Biden administration had its own initiative on critical and emerging technologies. And I think that will continue, maybe again under a different name in some form or another. Whether it'll be exactly the same, I can't say. Again, there'll be areas of focus where we'll want to work together. But you have raised the issue, and you mentioned the CATSA sanctions. India believes in a multipolar world and a multi-aligned set of relationships. And one of its important relationships is with Russia. And I don't know all the inside details, but if India has Russian technology in its possession and has that close relationship, that conceivably could put limits on the level of sensitive and confidential technology that it gets from the United States, simply for practical reasons. That's a choice for India, but I think it has to understand that if it's trying to keep both sensitive Russian technology and sensitive U.S. technology, there may be limitations as to the level of high technology and sensitivity it can achieve.
Right, because we recently saw, our defense minister going to Russia, and there are some more projects that might be discussed. So you think that's going to be a sort of pain point as far as U.S.-India relationship is concerned?
I think it's possible. I think the Indian government will feel that there are ways that they can isolate the Russian and U.S. technology. I don't know what the technology gurus in the United States government will think and whether that's a obstacle or not to the most sensitive areas. But then that'll be a choice for the Indian government to make as to how to balance that overall.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Ambassador Juster, for giving us your time and clarifying some of those points. And thank you for talking to ABP Live. Please take care.
Thank you very much. Delighted to do so. Take care as well.